Welcome back to Crafting a Meaningful Life. Are you excited that you're in the middle of crafting this life? I don't care if you're age 20 or if you're age 70. I don't care if you're age 30, if you're age 50. It's time to get on the ball and start it. But the idea that you get to choose, that you get to craft the life you want is such a novel thing. Now, it seems like, for example, to my guest, Lindsay and I, that this is something everybody knows about, everybody's involved with. Of course, you're the master of your destiny. But to be honest with you, about 90% of this planet still think they are just a victim being bannered to and fro like the bobblehead doll. They don't understand this gift of being able to choose. So thank you for being with us today. And thank you for being able to craft your meaningful life. I have an absolutely fabulous, amazing, and no words to describe woman for you today. And Lindsay Hadley, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Mary, for having me. You're so amazingly infectiously filled with joy. It just makes me smile. Thank you so much.
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't know that was one of my gifts, but I've discovered that as one of my gifts.
Sure.
I always had thought that I was just funny, so people would listen to me. I always thought I was just like louder and bigger than most, so that's why people listened. It wasn't until I did my 23andMe and I actually discovered that I am genetically predisposed to have great language ability, to be able to communicate. Who knew?
Awesome.
Yeah. I also didn't know until I was like in my late 60s, because of this 23andMe, that I have an extra protein that most people don't have. Only 10% of the population in the world have this extra protein, which allows me to build muscle mass. Now, what if I had known that in my 20s or in my teens? I mean, who knows? I might have chosen something completely different. So it's interesting what's out there for us now and the different things that we can look at. Lindsay, I'd like you to start by telling all my beautiful listeners just a little bit about yourself and how it is that there sits this absolutely gorgeous blonde who looks like she doesn't have a care in the world, has come to be the woman that you are.
What an honor to be able to share my story. Thank you, Mary, and for your natural love and the open-heartedness and how you receive everybody. My story starts out with growing up in a very small town. I grew up in a place called Camas, Utah, Woodland to be exact, a tiny little one-horse open sleigh town. Yeah, it's a little community. And my dad was an international broker and consultant, which allowed my family, we lived abroad once or twice. We lived in Hong Kong as a little girl and then in Russia after the fall of communism. And those experiences shaped my worldview and understanding that even though I was from this small town where very few people have even traveled outside of the state, let alone internationally, I realized what a truly global citizen we all are, that we're actually part of an ecosystem much broader and bigger than the purview of the community we live in, that the things we do and believe and say and perpetuate impact people all around the world. Yeah. And I had the amazing privilege to be raised in a family of faith that helped me, prioritize service and giving back as a part of my actualizing as a human being and becoming what divinity I think ultimately stands for, which is the perfect embodiment of love. And I found it to be really infectious and really joyful to be involved in service. And so very young in like high school and college, I got involved in service clubs and service opportunities, traveling even internationally on humanitarian trips. And that, again, kind of shaped what I wanted to do. So right out of college, I got my first job working for a nonprofit, a little local nonprofit. And we did humanitarian work in developing countries, Mexico, Thailand, Peru, Kenya. And we would build schools and medical dispensaries and hospitals. And I really loved that. And I thought, I found my dream job. I'm traveling. I'm helping make a difference. I'm working hard. I'm a part of people that all have this purpose-driven, prerogative. And then I got married and pregnant with my oldest son, Milo, who's 16 now. And those
The
16...
fact that you have a 16-year-old is not even computing with me.
You're so sweet. You're so sweet. I'm 41 and like we have children really young here in Utah. We get married young, as a part of that faith background, as you know. And it is really crazy that I have a 16-year-old, but he's, he was such a gift, but it definitely shifted my thinking because I didn't want to trek these malaria-ridden jungles when I was pregnant and nursing. I suddenly had to think differently. And so I started to move into like more administration and fundraising as a way to help the causes that I care about. And I found that I had a real knack for it. I found that I was really natural at being able to be audacious in a vision of gathering people and then helping build relationships that led to financial support.
And that truly is a gift you have.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Everyone that you meet and you say, would you like to? I think, have you ever heard, no, I don't want to? I mean, people just want to be around you. They want to be involved with what you're doing. They want to see your vision. That is a gift, girl.
Thanks, Mary. That's so kind of you. Of course, I've had no's. The cool part is like, I think this is a tip for anybody that's in a sales position, a fundraising position, in any kind of position that's enrolling people, which quite frankly, all of us are. I think people are like, I can't do sales. I don't. It's like, we're all selling. We're selling every day, of all kinds of things about ourselves and what we believe in and what we're trying to accomplish. But I always have seen no's as if we but allow it to be like loving and honoring the person whatever they are trying to accomplish. I see it as just like a momentary thing. It's like eventually there'll be some great reason we get to collaborate together is my belief. Like in some way we'll our Venn diagram will connect and it will be a gift to both of us to be united. And so I just don't ever really take it as rejection, but rather as like a timing or maybe it's not the right value proposition. And maybe that's one of the biggest beliefs that I've come to believe is that, instead of being in the nonprofit space with our hands out like beggars, I try to create intrinsic values so much that it's like, kind of Santa Claus, like, you're welcome and thank us. Both of us are winning in this situation, and that's the paradigm that I try to create so that it can be valuable to both parties. But
I love that concept that working in the nonprofit, because you do see this a lot, people out with their hands outstretched for the receiving, but it's more of an invitation.
Yeah, I think so.
To join in and be part of the whole. And there's so much fabulous stuff over here. Come. That's how I got sucked in with you.
Exactly. Well, the truth is, it might be the other people you get to work with. It might be the impact and it might be actually how it can help one's business or one's personal goals and agendas. Like I'm shameless about that. I think if somebody can make more money doing good, that means they can do more good. I think it's a virtuous cycle. So absolutely. I'm always trying to look for ways that there's just intrinsic on the nose value, but ultimately you try to make all of those things true. So ultimately I started fundraising and doing events and became like the charity concert lady after doing a bunch of music festivals and concerts and eventually became the executive producer of a thing called the Global Citizen Festival, which I was the chief development officer of. And it was this little tiny NGO that started out with just a handful of us, but ended up becoming huge. Like the Live Aid of our generation. Yeah. It was really big. And since then, it's 12 years since its inception, and as the chief development officer there, the founding team member and the founding executive producer, we leveraged billions of dollars for the world's poor. Even the first year was $1.2 billion. And the world's biggest celebrities and household entertainers, actors were on our stage, heads of state, titans of industry. It changed the total trajectory of my life and career. It was pretty big. It was fun to be a part of and very, very reorientating about what's possible in the world for me. So
suddenly a new vision opened up.
That's right. And so this Global Citizen, really helped me rethink. And then I started getting headhunted regularly, which was very flattering. But I had a lot of like A-list celebrities and ultra high net worth families and multinational corporations and NGOs asking me to come work for them. And so I finally started my own boutique consultancy called Hadley Impact Consulting. And for 10 years, I had dozens of incredible clients, including like the Vatican and Kenneth Cole and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and Hugh Jackman and his wife, Deborah Lee Furness. And just had all these projects and experiences, and the breadth and depth of projects and people that I got to collect along the way were just stunning. And it's been an amazing experience. And then about a year and a half ago, I shifted from this consulting kind of project by project, client by client, eat what you kill situation. And I wanted to figure out something maybe more economically sustainable for me. I just turned 40 last year, and I called my friend Mike Littledyke, who's the founder of Capita Financial Network. It's a small RIA based here in Utah. We manage about, it's been incredible what they've accomplished in 10 years. And Mike and his team, Cassie Myers and Zach, they've all been amazing. But Cassie's amazing, just incredible. And these individuals are so other centric, and they have share the same values and the same way of being in the world that I'm trying to emulate. And so I was so thrilled. I called Mike and I said, like, have you ever thought about having someone like me on your team? And he actually said, write your job description, basically. So together with Cassie, we kind of designed my role as the director of client relations at Capita. We manage about $1.7 billion assets under management. And my job is to create experiences and to create connections and ecosystems for especially women, but of all people in the community, and help them get exposure to incredible causes, since that's my jam. And they've been so recklessly generous in that effort and helping me create opportunities and experiences and networking for our clients. And so we've brought in a lot of assets under management that way. It's not just benevolent. It actually is like good business. We've brought in a lot of business in the last year and a half, and I've utterly enjoyed this experience at Capita. But then what's even maybe most on deck right now for me, and maybe lighting my soul up most right now, is that about a couple months ago, I decided to launch my own nonprofit, and it's the first of its kind film fund called the Harbor Fund. And it's a 501c3 tax-exempt entity that takes funding in from philanthropists, from major big donors, to underwrite television shows and movies, not necessarily documentaries. People have been doing that since before I was born, but major television productions and shows with A-list actors and the world-class talent, telling stories of impact that really shape the way we operate in our culture. So movies like the movie Taken, or Blood Diamond, or Schindler's List, or Hotel Rwanda, or Erin Brockovich, they all have these amazing, important causes behind them. And they reach people at such huge exponential rates because they're so commercially viable. But in the past, people have never really leveraged philanthropic dollars for content like this until now. And so it's just an idea as time has come, and we're building this first of its kind film fund, and it's just been a joy. So that's what I'm doing now. It's called the Harbor Fund.
I am just in love with this. You and I had a long conversation about Harbor Fund, which is when I said, okay, I think this is such an amazing piece. And there are different ways that people, of course, can be involved with the Harbor Fund. If you have $1 million to contribute to this absolutely amazing cause, then by all means, come and do it. But if you don't, then you can just go see one of these movies. You can write about it. You can post about it. You can share about how were you impacted. I like when I post about a movie that I've attended that had an impact on me. I don't want to just be like, hi, I saw this movie. I want to say why it impacted me. Because it told me a story. It exposed me to a piece of humanity in this world that I had maybe heard of but was unfamiliar with. But it was so intoxicating, so like wanting to watch it. You get wrapped up in the story, and in the end you realize, I learned something, I felt something, I want to do something. And
I love
there's
that.
So many different ways that we can be involved in movies of impact. So tell me about what you're doing currently with the Harbor Fund, and what is like on the horizon for you.
Oh, thank you for asking that, Mary. So first of all, I love what you said about how these stories want to drive you into action or change our way of behaving, because at the end of the day, I think the most powerful thing we do as human beings is tell stories. We tell stories to ourselves and we tell stories to others that then dictate our behavior, right? So if we change our thinking through a story, through a paradigm shift, through new information, new insights, new ways of looking at the world, we behave differently. Like if you drive home today and you don't believe, the story you tell yourself is there's no cops here, I'm not going to get pulled over, you'll speed. If you believe there's a cop around the corner, you won't speed. So that story in your head dictates your behavior. If you have a story that you're a victim, you'll behave like a victim. If you have a story that people are evil and bad and take advantage of you, you will essentially see that in others. If you have
and
a story,
you'll draw it into your life.
Agreed. Yeah, you kind of you know your mindset. This is what they talk about manifestation. I don't think it's like some magical thing. I think it's very mechanical. Like we think something, we then behave differently, and those behaviors have cause and effect in our lives. And that's when the manifestation. I do believe there are sometimes otherworldly mystical situations where you kind of like will stuff in. I'm sure that there's something to that, but for the most part, manifestation comes with, you know, your posture to the world, where you put your feet and how you operate, that actually has outcomes that are pretty powerful. But so I believe the storytelling thing is really critical, and I believe that right now in Hollywood, it's a handful, and I'll say this, my friend Heather Collard always refers to, she's like male, pale, frail, and stale. It's mostly a couple executives in Hollywood just determining what we watch, what's on our screens.
Oh, that's Heather. God,
yeah, you know, so, you know, and it's true, like it's mostly a bunch of the same people that have certain political ideologies, certain economic power, and certain positions and paradigms of where they come from and their backgrounds that are making all the decisions about what gets greenlit, what gets funded, what we get to see. And so unless you look to like independent filmmaking, which is like Herculean in its efforts, it's pretty challenging to make stuff that actually reflects the free market, because in film, it's not like you can launch a small MVP of like a product and see if everyone likes it. You have to, you know, spend tens of millions of dollars to test an assumption if anybody wants to see this film. And so there's a lot of loss and a lot of risk, and only about 12% of films in Hollywood actually make money. And so my friend Bugs, yeah, it's pretty abysmal. Like, candidly, if people ask you to invest in film, like, be very, very skeptical, especially if they're asking you, if you're not in like institutional funder, like where you have tons of expertise and knowledge. It's a pretty high risk situation. Now, there can be incredible success stories, but it's higher risk than most industries. My friend Bud Scruggs said there's two types of people, Lindsay. There's wealthy people who lost money in Hollywood and wealthy people who will, is what he says. And so it's the truth. Like most of my friends that have gotten into filmmaking as high net worth people have been very disenchanted. They've, you know, there's a bunch of reasons for that. But one is actually that, you know, in my opinion, that the Hollywood accounting is actually a little corrupt. They will do things in ways that actually doesn't have the best interests of the investors, because they kind of see them as dumb money. I've even heard them to refer to it as dumb money. They're like, these people just want to be in on with this A-list celebrity or have their name next to. Well, the reality is what we're trying to do at Harbor is just take that head on and say, you know, we're likely not to make our money back, so let's make it a nonprofit, and let's pick films that have causes associated with them. So the IRS goes, yeah, that's a social utility good. So we're not going to be making Fast and the Furious or Game of Thrones. We're going to be making movies that actually, you know, inspire humanity and have core values that really help us think about how to operate in a world where we can diminish suffering and build empathy and build connection and stories that matter. And so these philanthropists can come in and underwrite these films, writing a check to these projects, and then get executive producer credit, get to come on the red carpet, get to meet the celebrities, get to be a part of this moment in culture. Yeah. You know, people have been doing this since Machiavellian age. Like, people have been, underwriting art and the Mona Lisa and donating it to a museum, or commissioning art to share with society. Now we can do it with films through Harbor Fund. So it's pretty cool, because if there's any returns, however, which in a slate of films we can diversify, those funds can come back into the shared pool of money and then perpetually make good films. And that's the premise. And there's never been a structure of this kind in film. People have done this in other verticals, like the Acumen Fund has deployed over $170 something million into social enterprises. the Sorensen Impact Center here in Utah have been leveraging just tens and tens of millions of dollars into social entrepreneurial levers, and then the money comes back and then can do more good. But people haven't done it in film and television until now. So we're the first, which is super exciting. And
that's amazing.
I'm just thrilled. I feel like, like it's an idea's time has come, and I'm just praying we're going to be worthy stewards. And I've gotten some of the most powerful and talented people in the entertainment industry to band around us, which is just, I'm just pinching myself about that.
That's wonderful. Oh my gosh. So, any ideas of what kinds of things you want to promote? The slate that kind of speaks to you. I mean, obviously the movie, you were absolutely right about the movie, for example, Taken. Mm-hmm. I wasn't really even aware of the sex trafficking industry and kind of how it looked. But I'll tell you, I felt that film had me by the jugular vein, and I couldn't move. I was just like watching it intently. And after that, I told everyone, don't ever let your children travel abroad by themselves. But it led me to, I was now keen on, when I heard that again, that, oh, this is dealing with sex trafficking, then I would like perk up. I'd be like, tell me about that. And I would want to learn more. I don't think you're targeting what I want you to target, so I'll look for another opportunity in sex trafficking. No, you're not quite the organization for me either. I'm going to look over here. But I was now aware of the issue that I hadn't been before. And even down here to Utah, where we think, well, that's something that happens in Europe and Indonesia. I mean, yeah. But to actually see it face to face that it's happening here in Utah, and so what can we do and how do we do that? And instead of calling the adult industry, and calling them prostitutes, 99% of them are sex trafficked women. Yes. Who do not believe they have a choice.
That's right.
So that's the power of a movie like Taken.
Yes.
What kind of is your focus? Do you have any, can you give us a little secret hint of where you're... Yeah, okay, go.
I'd be so happy to. So right now we have 9 different films on our slate, and we're working with some of the best filmmakers in the world. We have a TV show with Tony Hawk that it's called Boarding Pass, and he travels around the world doing skateboarding in different cultures, and he shows how skateboarding is actually this great unifier, something that most people see as kind of a rebellious thing, that they kind of see, oh, these hooligans are skateboarding, showing these beautiful women in Quechuan dress dropping in a pipe in Bolivia, or people in India, using skateboarding in a way to get around and have community. And so it's very much it could be as benign as that, where it's not so heavy as the movie Taken, is using film to tell a story that's edifying and unifying for us in different cultures, and the BIPOC community, showing that they're enjoying sports that traditionally have been white sports, for example. Or there's our film called Flash Before the Bang, that actually Krista and Jim Sorensen, who I know you're friends with, Mary.
Yes, yeah.
They came on as executive producers for... We were mentioning them earlier. They're like the original. They're the OGs, the original gangsters of social impact investing. They understand this idea of perpetual funding, and so they really got what we were trying to do here. And the film is called Flash Before the Bang, and it'll be out next year. It's starring Kevin James, the actor from Hitch or Kings of Queens, if somebody knows him. He's been in a lot of films, family-friendly films. But Matt Damon and Ben Affleck are executive producing. And I'm so pleased to be an executive producer with them. And it's a true story of a high school running team in the 1980s that won state that were deaf. And the flash of the gun they could see before anyone heard the bang, because light travels faster than sound. And the movie is really about what it was like to be differently abled and deaf in the 1980s, when we didn't have closed captioning, when you would have to run next door to a neighbor if there was a 911 emergency. And what's most compelling about this film, in my opinion, is that it's going to be historic. It'll be the most differently abled cast and crew in cinematic history. So our director's deaf, our lead producer's deaf, our scriptwriter's deaf, all of our actors that are playing deaf characters are deaf in real life. And there's 28 different deaf people on set. And when I was there in Portland, Oregon with my kids, they got to be extras dressed up in amazing 80s gear. We were there just watching this film be made. It was truly historic what was happening, where they're signing and we have translation, and this whole film is coming together about us, by us, through the deaf community, you know? So the fact that they could tell their own story is truly compelling. So that's an example of a film. We have TV shows that are anthologies. There's a $60 million budgeted film called United, about the United Nations and the East Timor conflict in the 1990s, where Leonardo DiCaprio is producing it, and we have people like Kevin Costner playing President Clinton, and Melissa McCarthy playing like a UN worker. There's amazing shows and movies. We have the new Hershey movie that we're doing. That's a biop,
right.
It's a beautiful, these are all scripted, you know. So some of them are live unscripted television shows, but some of them these are scripted movies. So this movie is the story of Milton Hershey, who founded Hershey chocolates that we all know.
Yep.
And the story of how he and his wife ended up becoming very committed to vulnerable children and volunteering in an orphanage. And when he dies, he leaves his entire dynastic founding shares to that orphanage, which has become a $26 billion endowment called the Hershey Foundation. Yeah. And it's that movie's all about vulnerable children and the power of love and family and connection for little human beings that are vulnerable. So these different movies and shows, we have so many of them. They're all world-class, made by world-class filmmakers with world-class A-list talent. And so these aren't like small gimmicky things. They're really powerful. And we have amazing people coming in and projects that are allowing us in that have just blown my mind, that I feel like we're 2 minutes old and we've raised $3.5 million, and we've partnered with, I'll just mention really quickly, our board consists of some of the most powerful people in the industry. We have Patty Jenkins, the director of Wonder Woman, who won an Oscar for Monster. If you've seen that, she's the director of the new Lego movie. I was asked to do be the first female producer for Star Wars. We have Mark Burnett, who's done over 200 live unscripted shows, from Survivor to The Voice to The Apprentice to Shark Tank. Geraldine Dreyfus, who's here in Utah, who's like the queen of impact documentaries. She's done over 200 films as well and won multiple Oscars and Emmys, and started the Utah Film Center. We have the senior vice president of Paramount Pictures, Tony Bone, involved, and we have people like Jared Butler, the actor, and Katie Kirk, the journalist. And we partnered with Sir Richard Branson, and we're going to be hosting the first ever film festival at Necker Island that he'll be attending. And we're going to be featuring our slate of films and having ultra high net worth people come to learn about these projects to help fund them. So it's just got a ton of what my mentor would call tailwind, when it has a natural inertia, meaning it's something people want to see happen. And we're just so honored to be able to execute it together as friends.
As you were talking about these movies and these films, I'm just thinking, for example, with the skateboarding deal. That's, of course, in my generation, I'm now in my 70s, it was like when the skateboarding thing happened, they were like, oh yeah, those are the people that can't keep their pants on their butt, they do that.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And
Totally.
that it wasn't ever a mode of transportation to get around, and it certainly was not a sport. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But then as we watch that evolve, and now that it's on the Olympics, suddenly it has a huge stamp of approval. You know, you are like a sport. Maybe that will happen to breakdancing because it was on the Olympics. I don't know. But so I do see it differently because of that kind of exposure to it.
Yeah.
And I love all of that kind of ideas of being exposed to something and what can happen and what can be done and how can we, have this be a global piece. It's very exciting for you.
Thank you.
Talk to women, and of course, like I said, I'm, a big chunk of my listeners are right here in Utah and along the Wasatch Front. But I also have another huge chunk, and I'm always amazed, that are international and in other parts of the country as well. But I look at, when I see things pop up from Switzerland, I'm like, how do you even know about me? What is that about? Or, you see something in Dubai. I'm like, Dubai. But it's just one impact into that world of women that says, someone is speaking who knows you, who understands your heart. And that's what I like to put out. And that's kind of what I get from you. Lindsay, is that you understand people's hearts, not just women, but really understand people's hearts. And that we are not just here. The people you're working with, I believe, are on the page with you and with me, that we're not just here to get to the end with a pile of money. We are here to truly make a difference with ourselves and our own personal lives, and then, of course, others, and as we lift. I can't even imagine getting to the end and saying, did you ever see how many cars I had? Seriously. What up with that?
I love it.
And I just, you've heard that so many times. Nobody ever says on their deathbed, oh, I wish I'd spent more time at the office. They don't. They say, I wish I had spent more time with my family, the people that mattered. And the piece that you're looking at, Lindsay, is that it's not just limited. We get to the end and we say, it mattered what I did. The global experience is better because I was here. Thank you for knowing their hearts.
I love it. I love that you have that heart. And not everybody shows up to the world that way, but those who do, they really get it, because whether it's by legacy, so their kids can see what they were part of and what they got involved in, or whether because they actually believe we can turn certain levers and change the trajectory of humanity, that our cause and effect, our way of being, the stories we tell ourselves, the things we get involved with, where we spend our time, what our values are, do matter and impact each other. But I will say that you mentioned like family, I'm so blessed because I'm making, particularly in the past, I've done projects, I've worked for clients, I've even founded other things. Some things have failed, some things have been really successful, but I don't think I've ever in my life put together like a more aligned and loving team. These are people that have known each other for 20, 30 years. It's like, there's no dating happening. Yeah. People really, really, like on the core executive team, I co-founded it with my friends, Freddie Bosch and Phil Webb and Matt Peterson, who are all these amazing men who have each their individual remarkable gifts. But I've known them for a long, long time. And I've seen them in high pressure situations, how they handle failure. One of my mistakes I made early in my career is I became a co-founder with people I barely knew. And if I'd done any due diligence on them or actually like spent time, I would have found that we were not a culture fit or that they were not people of integrity. Those things I could have found out pretty easily had I not rushed in. It was kind of like I didn't have the business acumen that I have today. And so what I'm so grateful for is that this idea is something that I know I want to do the rest of my life. And I found the people I want to do it with. And we get to bring our kids along and our families along the journeys so that it's something we're creating together. And like I said, we brought our kids on set to the movies where we're filming. They get to be a part of the tribe and community. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like if we didn't have 200 movies, a decade later and there was only 10, but we were all better friends because of it, then that would be a dream come true to me.
I love that. As we end the podcast, Lindsay, I want to ask you a burning question. And it's a question that's been asked to me as people watch the philanthropic work that I do. I want to ask it to you. Do you really think that we can move the needle? Do we really think that 20 years from now, our planet will be different than it is today?
I know it. I know it because we've seen it. History doesn't lie. And, we've changed the way we think about women, about race. I mean, even wearing seatbelts, smoking cigarettes. I mean, our culture has had the impact. Civil rights movements. I mean, we've changed the way that we think about education, about technology. Look at what is available to us today. I mean, I look outside my window and a plane is traveling through the air. It's a bended piece of metal that was utterly impossible to do before the Wright brothers, right? And so these ideas that we sometimes can sit back and be jaded about, it's like, just look at what has happened. It took somebody to hit that 4-minute mile to actually have others believe it was possible. So I'm way, way more optimistic than jaded. Yes, sometimes we our hubris can hurt us, and I've been guilty of that. I just kind of see the best in people and always seeing the opportunity. That's why I've surrounded myself with really smart people that look for vulnerabilities, that have a mind for better structure, that can protect us, because I just kind of always see what's possible. I don't see the downside very naturally. It's not my gift. But at the end of the day, like, we can make a difference. I know it. I know it because the resilience of the human spirit is indelible. It is literally, it permeates all space and time, this idea of love. And love is the most powerful thing on earth. And when we really bring love forward, it also marries with truth. It's not the Pollyanna, like, well, just kumbaya and hold hands and it solves the problem in the Middle East. It's like, there are real solutions. People have created and integrated when there's been conflict for decades and centuries and generations, and they've created peace. This has happened. We can actually come up with solutions. We can come up with ways of being that change the way that we other people and create narratives that are deeply hurtful. And what I believe is that, the Hollywood is the most powerful PR engine in the world, and that it ultimately in Western culture does represent our kings and queens of culture. As jaded as you can be about Hollywood, as much as you can say you don't care about celebrities, those are the people that have the microphone. Those are the people that get eyeballs. Yeah. Those are the people that move the needle if they want to. And people can say they don't, but there's a reason that brands pay them $20 million to be in their commercial. It's because it sells more product. And so at the end of the day, if I can take any market share of that through benevolent people and philanthropists and human beings that are creative and talented, and we can move these stories into being stories that serve the greater whole and bless humanity instead of just be entertaining, we want them to be entertaining and make a difference. And so that's what I'm so thrilled to be a part of. So my answer is yes, we can make a difference.
I love that. And you are absolutely right. Even those people who think, I hate Hollywood. I hate the idea of this. I don't look at how she flaunts her body. Look at, that horrible relationship we thought was a great marriage. It's not. They say that, but all the algorithms of social media will tell you that you stop and look, even if it's in disgust, before you go on. If you see a picture of a celebrity, a Hollywood person, you stop, and in there you're interested, or you roll the eyes and flick, but you still looked. That's the ingrained power of Hollywood, whether we like it or not. And you now are just taking advantage of that power of Hollywood and bringing it to the causes that matter so much.
That's the hope. That's the hope, is that we can harness that amplification that Hollywood has and bring it to something more worthy, right? We want better stories told. We need better stories. And we need to believe better stories in our hearts about ourselves and about our civilization for us to ever have the change we're talking about.
I love you.
I love you.
Do love you. You are a bright spot in my life. Whenever I see you at an event or anywhere, I mean, literally, you've seen it on my face. I just it's Lindsay.
Likewise, Mary, you're such a gift. You and John are such pillars in our community, and I feel so grateful to call you a friend. Thank you for having me on your show. It means so much to me.
You're so welcome. And we're going to include links at the end of this. If you want to know more about the Harbor Fund, you can actually do that, or follow Lindsay on social media, whatever works for you, to get to love and appreciate this rock star woman the way that I do as a friend.
Thank you, Mary.
Thanks for being with us, and thank you for taking another step into crafting your meaningful life. Namaste.
Crafting a Meaningful Life.